And we are live. This is The Secret, How to Fight CPS and Win. My name is attorney Vince Davis, and I'm joined by two co-hosts, Miss Cassandra Woodard. Good morning, Miss Cassandra. How are you?
Good. Good morning.
And we're joined by our other co-host, Miss G, Miss Georgette Truen. Miss Truen, how are you? We just had her. I guess we lost her. She went silent for a minute, but we'll continue since we're live. So, Cassandra, before the show, you were telling me, oh, there's Miss G. Miss G, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm fine.
Good. You know, I wanted to tell you something. I was taking a streaming class on the web, and one of the things they said, the best thing that you could have for your video, is that natural light both you and Miss Cassandra have in back of you. It makes your picture better, and it comes across on this live stream better for the viewers. Anyway, that's just a
That's good.
side point. Okay, Miss Cassandra, you were telling me before the show that you had some stories that you wanted to share with us or some information. What's going on?
Oh, well, I just had some questions about like the different hearings and what attorneys can argue in different hearings and if it was right or not. I wanted to just ask some questions about it.
Okay, go ahead.
Maybe give people so I was reading something and I was like, I wanted to ask, should your attorney argue that the department didn't show reasonable efforts, and when and why would they argue that?
Okay, so that's actually a really good question. And a lot of people, a lot of attorneys that I have talked to about that consider that argument a throwaway, like not valuable. But it is a very valuable argument. I a few months ago, I was in. Actually, must have been more than a few months ago because I was actually in the courtroom. This must have been pre-COVID. But a judge ruled in my favor at the detention hearing because the Department of Children and Family Services didn't show any evidence of reasonable services to avoid the detention. So, you know, the county council and I and the minors council, we spent tons of time arguing the facts and arguing other parts of the law. And the judge made the ruling and said, you know, nobody's mentioned this, but the department hasn't shown any evidence of reasonable services to avoid detention. And based upon that and the arguments of counsel, being me and the other attorneys, I'm releasing the child to, you know, the mother, which was my client. So it turns out that that is such an important argument because the code in California, and I believe everywhere else in the country, because it's all based upon, federal regulations, is that the social workers has
Yeah.
to show reasonable efforts before they do or place your child or take your child and keep your child at almost every stage of the proceedings. Now, I've said a lot of times, every hearing you go to is different, right? But every hearing you have in every module, except for when they terminate your rights, they have to show that they provided reasonable efforts to keep you and your child together or to bring you and your child back together. And it's so important because, you know, Miss G talks a lot about the economics of all of this. You know, if the judge doesn't make a reasonable efforts finding, the CPS loses funding for that case. The easiest way for CPS
Yeah.
not to get paid is to show that they didn't give reasonable efforts. Now, part of the law also says they have to show reasonable efforts unless it's kind of a situation where they don't have to show reasonable efforts. And I'll give you an example. Um,
Like an
at the
emergency
detention hearing,
situation?
right, exactly right, an
Mm-hmm.
emergency situation. Or later on in the case, it could be a situation where, say, for example, the parent, say, I lost my train of thought. God's creation? Okay. No, if the parent just absolutely, refuses, um, reasonable services or refuses services. Yesterday, I met with a client who came in and his complaint, I mean, he had a vehement complaint about one of my attorneys recommending to him that he sign up for parenting classes, that he sign up for domestic violence classes, and maybe that he sign up for anger management classes. After I explained everything to him, I didn't say to him, you got to go do this. Okay. Because if you tell anybody you got to do something, their first reaction generally is, well, I'm not going to do it. F you. But I explained everything to him. And, we met for about an hour. And as I sat there, I realized that this poor guy only had his own perceptions about the case. Everybody has their perceptions about what is justice, right? And they're generally wrong, unfortunately. But I explained to him how things are laid out statutorily in our code. And this wasn't, rough corner justice. This was, okay, there's a code and a framework, and this is how shit has to be done, right? And if you don't do it, you're going to lose. And he told me that he'd do anything to get his kids back. And I believed him. I mean, like most parents. And I told him, well, Joyce had given you some advice, you should consider it. And you know what he told me? He says, I'm going home right now and I'm signing up for everything. I said, that's a really good idea. And I explained to him how it actually helps me at the trial, because I'm going to be doing his trial, and how it's not an admission of guilt. It's not. If you sign up for a parenting class, that doesn't mean you're a bad parent. It means something else in the law. And it gives you the edge, believe it or not. Social workers, when they want to keep your kid away from you, rely on the fact that you're not going to do it. They rely on that fact because you're going to tell me or tell the social worker, you know what? I don't need to do that. You know what? I don't have that problem. On and on. I mean, I've heard it all. I've heard it all over, 30 some years. And sometimes it's just difficult to make that client believe that, you're in a framework, you're in a system. I didn't put you there, but you're in the system of laws. And this is how you win. Okay? I'm not saying you're a bad parent. I'm not saying that you have a drug problem. I'm not saying you have an anger management problem. I'm not saying any of that. As a matter of fact, I told this to him yesterday. I told this to my client yesterday. He's kind of like, what? I said, I don't care. I really don't care. I said, you came to me because you wanted to win. I'm trying to explain to you how to win. Now, if you want to do it the harder way and pay me more money and take more time, do it your way. I'm cool with it. It's your life, your family. I can only give you advice. I can't take you to the water and make you drink. Anyway, the meeting turned out well. He's going to sign up for everything. Why? So we can win. That's all. Go ahead.
Okay. That brings me to my next question.
Okay.
So how important would it be to argue a parent's protective capacity, and when and where should you argue that?
That comes up on issues of failure to protect. A lot of cases get in the system in my opinion, that shouldn't be in the system when they're arguing, failure to protect, right? I'll give you the classic example. And I can't believe that I'm saying this because it sounds so ridiculous to me, but this is apparently the law. The mother and father, well, strike that. The father attacks the mother in a domestic violence argument. They're having an argument, they're nose to nose, yelling about whatever, and the father hauls off and hits the mother. Boom. Police are called. They charge the father, of course, with the domestic violence, being a risk to the child. But then they charge the mother, the victim. And it's kind of insane to me because it still is not common sense to me, but doesn't matter. I didn't make the laws. They charged the mother with failure to protect, that she knew or should have known that this guy was a violent guy, which is rarely the case, right? Or they say, you know what, you're still in love with him, you're still, living with him, you haven't divorced him. Therefore, you're a risk at failing to protect. You won't get that restraining order against them. You won't file for the divorce, which always seemed odd to me because the law actually says family reunification, not reunification with the mom or, the other parent and kicking the dad to the curb. You're supposed to be giving services. How's divorcing the guy going to solve that problem? No, I mean, if you really want to get divorced, that's fine, but that's between you, your spouse, or you and your counselor, or you and your, religious leader. That's not a thing I think social workers should be getting involved in, right? They're there to help protect children and help give you services to keep the family together. And that means the guy that just hauled off and punched you. It doesn't matter what I think. I mean, if, like, I have a daughter now, and, if the guy, hit her, I'd probably advise her to leave him, right? But that doesn't mean I can make that kind of advice in a professional social worker setting, and that doesn't mean that if you don't leave him, that I'm going to keep your kids away from you forever, right? So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah.
No, it did. Oh, it did. Okay.
That's all my questions. Yeah, that was all my questions.
Wait, here look
I
at
did
Deidre
those
Payne
questions
says.
in the first
You did those questions in the first what?
15 minutes before the show.
Oh, okay. Good questions. Good questions. Look what Deidre Payne says. They base my TPR on that sole fact that I never did leave my husband. That's incredible to me. But you know what? I see it all the time. I see people, courts and social workers use that very thing to keep your kids away from you. And it's supposed to be family reunification services. Anyway, did you have any more questions, Miss Cassandra?
No, those were the only two.
All right. How about you, Miss G? Did you have any questions this morning? How are you at reading lips, Cassandra?
Here I am.
Oh, there
Not
you
good.
are.
Sorry.
Hi, Miss G.
When oh my God, hold on. It's right here. Sorry. Okay, so there's a question. Does a parent have a legal right through her attorney? Does the parent have the legal right to refuse through her attorney to refuse herself and children being interviewed and no entry into her home?
Assuming that means before a case has started, the answer is yes, unless the social worker has a warrant to enter the home and or to interview the children. Remember, they can never get a warrant to interview the parent, but they can get a warrant to interview the child and to come into the home.
But what if they don't have a warrant? Can they force can DCFS force her and her children to be interviewed?
The answer is no.
Okay. All right. The other one, she said that you mentioned having a lawyer but not cooperating. What does not cooperating include?
During this period of time, okay. So, generally, social workers, before a case is filed, they come to you and they pressure you to talk, to be interviewed. All right. There is no law that says that you have to do that. So, a lot of social workers will say, for example, let me give you an example. You got to go drug test, Georgette. And if you don't drug test, I'm going to count that as dirty and I'm going to tell the judge. Right? That sounds pretty bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
All of it's true. They are going to count it as dirty. They are going to tell the judge.
Mm-hmm.
But guess what? In my opinion, the judge is not supposed to use that against you. Why? Because there's no legal basis to make you go test before a case is started. Only a judge can say, hey, Georgette, you got to go drug test to keep your children. Maybe there's a law in some states that say that as well. I don't know. It would seem almost unconstitutional, but that's not the law in California. Or they'll say, you got to talk to me. I got to get these questions answered, blah, blah, blah. Or I'm going to take your kid and, tell the judge. That's why I tell people, and I know you have told people, perhaps you should be taping this and letting them know that you're videotaping this, because that's an illegal threat. You don't have to talk to any governmental agent that you don't want to. And that's just part of your right as a citizen of the United States.
Yeah, but when they bring the police, it becomes a little bit more intense for people. Like if
I
I,
agree.
for example, if I didn't know the law and I see a officer outside knocking on my door and he's demanding to come in the house, or something, I would probably let him in, thinking
Right.
I have nothing to hide.
No, I understand. I get it. That's why I tell people, call the lawyer. You don't have to talk to anyone,
Mhm.
you know. But you know what it is, the uniform, the badge, the gun,
Mhm.
the handcuffs on the belt. You get psychologically intimidated. And I think that's why a lot of social workers, even when they don't have a warrant, bring the police. And sometimes the police are with the social worker, just the idea of, we're here to support the social worker. But I've had occasions where people have told me this, that the police have said to the social worker, you're nuts, get out of here.
Mhm.
There's nothing wrong here. I was talking to someone the other day where a social worker without a warrant comes to the house and says, that the kids are being abused and blah, blah, blah. And the cop gets there and says, just hold on. And the cop asks to see the kid, and the parent did the smart thing in that situation. Let the cop see and talk to the kids. Cop sees and talks to the kids, determines there's nothing going on here,
Mhm.
tells the social worker, you must have got a false report. There's nothing going on here. I suggest you leave. She didn't want to leave. So the parent told the cop, she's trespassing.
Mhm.
Please, make her leave or arrest her for trespassing on my property. The cop looked at the social worker like, man's got a point. Social worker left. But it's different in every situation because, the cop could have taken the whole different attitude. You know, police and social workers have a lot of discretion in exercising, and doing their job.
Some cops are, I call them sissies because they see a social worker badge and they just right away
Right,
like, okay, well, we'll escort you. Like, it to me, I'm
right,
not saying
but
all
that's
cops are bad. I'm not saying that at all. I'm
but
not, but they're
y-
crazy.
y- right, but it just depends on the training they have and their own personal experiences, right?
No, I just think they're sissies. That's all.
Okay. Yes, Miss Cassandra.
I think
Miss
Teresa has
Cassandra,
a good question.
what does she say?
Teresa has a good question. She said, "What if they tell you you can't, or that the judge ordered you not to record your visits in a public park? Is that legal?"
Teresa, I'm going to assume that this is during the case. So actually after a case has started. All right. So if a judge orders you not to tape or record, you cannot tape or record. Period. End of story.
But that's stupid, though.
Okay.
That's very stupid.
I know, but Teresa just asked me the question. I'm just giving you the answer. I'm only the messenger.
I get that. I
But
get that.
there is something you can do, Teresa. You
Hmm.
can appeal or file a writ on the judge's order
Mm-hmm.
as being unconstitutional.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then that appellate court is going to have to decide if you're right or if the judge is right. Now, it becomes a little bit more sticky or confusing if the social worker says, don't record during the visit. But the judge didn't say it, right? So, given the circumstances, I'd have to hear a little bit more detail about it to give you what I would advise. In some cases, I would advise go ahead and tape. In some cases, I would advise don't tape. It just depends. I was listening to a YouTube video from another channel this morning, and it was a lawyer actually who I know and admire. He's back in New York, and it was an interesting video because he 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 posed a common question from clients. And it was basically, can I win my case? And he said, there is no way in the world that I could tell you an opinion about whether you're going to win your case in this first 5-minute conversation. He says, and the reason is because I haven't reviewed your file. I don't know the things that you're saying. I don't know the things that they're saying, more importantly, because there's two sides to every story. He said, so I'd have to do an evaluation. And I used to say this, and he said, if any lawyer tells you in that first conversation that they can win your case for you without reviewing your file, they're probably lying to you. And why would they lie to you? Because they want you to hire them. Out of all of the people that talk to lawyers, I mean, you have to be very careful because lawyers can't tell the future, and they surely can't give a competent opinion unless they really, really, review the file. And this is why they get a lot of times. I tell people that, and they say, "Oh, come on, Mr. Davis, come on, based upon what you've told me." We go back and forth, and then I say something like this: "Well, just based upon what you told me, I think blah blah blah." But if I get the file and find out you left out something, or you told me something that was incorrect, just a little bit incorrect, I might change my opinion. And, a lot of clients or prospective clients, they don't want to hear that.
You've done that a lot. You just did that recently with a client. She told me one thing, and then you found out completely something different.
Right.
And yeah, that's all the time, by the way. Just for you guys to know, it's all the time. It's not sometimes, it's most times.
Right. So, a lot of times, attorneys will tell you based upon
Eric
what
wants me to run for office. Okay, Eric.
do you want you to run for president.
I don't know. A lot of people keep telling me, Miss G, you should run for office. Hmm, I don't know about that.
I didn't understand this comment by Deidre Payne. Johnny Cochran did.
Deidre always comes up with things,
Right.
and I
So,
don't understand where she's getting it from. I don't understand. Deidre, I love you, but can you give us a little bit more?
Deidre, I don't know if you ever saw Johnny Cochran in action, but probably one of the greatest trial attorneys ever in the history of the United States. If you could ever go online, like YouTube, and find some clips of him, in trial, uh, you would be amazed. And he was feared by his opponents. Also, I went to the Trial Lawyers College, the Jerry Spence Trial Lawyers College. If you can find clips of him on YouTube and watch him, um, absolutely brilliant, brilliant trial lawyer. And by the way, knowledge of the law doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a brilliant trial attorney. Being a brilliant trial attorney is a totally different skill, completely different. Completely different. Okay, Miss G, what's your next question?
Can the monitor, if the children enjoy a certain song and the mother wants to play the song in a public place, not a public place, but in a park, and the monitor says, I don't like that song because it's Christian song, and the monitor is Muslim. She doesn't want to hear a Christian song. It's a song, "Open the Eyes of My Heart, Lord," and it's like for kids. And the monitor is Muslim, like I said, and the mother is a Christian woman, and the father, so the husband and wife, and they wanted the children to have a little bit of normal, the songs they used to sing together, all that. And the monitor said that if they play this song again, she will make sure that they will never see their children again because she's Muslim. They make that very clear. So, what is your advice for that?
Well, if they were in California, um,
Yes, in California, Orange County.
there are some. Well, first of all, let me say this. When they place a child in foster care, they're supposed to be placing the child in the same culture and or religion.
Negative. Doesn't happen
Oh,
ever.
okay. I'm not saying that
They're supposed
it's.
to.
I said they're. Thank you, Cassandra. I said supposed to.
Right. But they don't do it. That's the point I'm trying.
And,
What they're
and if they
supposed
if
to do, what they do are completely different things. So at this moment, the mother is trying to have a normal visitation with her kids. Can a Muslim monitor force the mother and the father not to sing with the children anything about Jesus?
no, the
Okay.
monitor can't do that.
Now,
Now, that
mhm,
doesn't mean that they will do it or they won't do it, right?
mhm.
So in that particular case, and I don't advise this, but all the time, but tape recording someone is supposed to be illegal in California.
Mhm.
However, this is a big however. Um, there are exceptions to that rule. And one of the exceptions is the commission of a felony. I would consider a statement by the foster parent that you'll never see I'll make sure you'll never see your kids again
Mhm.
is a felony,
Mhm.
and that it can be recorded. It could be used in court, right? I mean, that's a very serious threat.
But okay, That's that's fine. That's a serious threat. We got that, but she didn't record her. Now, can she hire a private investigator to monitor the monitor?
I think that she can.
Hmm.
I think that she can because especially if you're out in a public, park or situation like that.
Hmm. Yeah, because see, the private investigator can also record. He or she has to come close enough to to the monitor. I mean, close enough. But the thing about it is, the client or potential client that called me said the monitor was freaking out from day one, asking me and my husband if we hired a private investigator. And the husband's like, why is it so important to her? He said, I had no idea what a private investigator would do in this situation, right? But she kept asking, so they kept saying they're looking over. She's looking over her head constantly, um, asking them if there's somebody else recording her, somebody else, So she's paranoid already from day one.
Right. But you know what? A good private investigator, I mean, they have surveillance equipment. You'll never see the camera. You'll never see anybody filming you. I mean, they could take it from such distances and zoom in on you, even the sound. I mean, they would never know.
I know,
They would never know.
I know. There's one good one that you know about that did that to one of your clients, by the way.
That helped one of our clients.
Yeah, that did the.
Are his initials AB?
Mhm.
Okay, she's talking about private investigator Art Bustamante.
Hmm. Yeah,
And the things that I've hired him for, or clients have hired him for, he's done a very good job so far. As a
very
matter of fact, you don't know this, Miss G, but I just hired him the other day to do some work for me
good.
on a case.
You don't know where this guy is. Honest to God, he helped one of our clients. I don't want to say her name, but Davis know who she is. But that client didn't even know if he was even there. Like
Right,
it's crazy.
right.
Yeah,
So I don't.
you guys need to hire a private investigator, and he's reasonable. And just remember this, guys. This could help you a lot on your case. And if correct me if I'm wrong, Attorney Davis, it will help them a lot on their case because what the social worker says on the report or the monitor, whatever the hell they want to be called, what she writes in the report is not that I told the parents I'm Muslim and I don't like Jesus, right? She's going to write something completely different.
Right.
So having a private investigator will, you know, make it clear to the courts. Am I right or no?
No, no, you're right. I met Art through, I forgot how I met him, but he was working on a case, and this was the scenario. The report always said that the kid and the mother never got along during the visit,
Right.
and that the mother never paid attention to the kid, and blah blah blah. The visits were bad.
Hmm.
So it always looked bad to the judge because the judge is believing the social worker.
Hmm.
The mother hired Mr. Bustamante to videotape the visits, and the videotapes, of course, showed loving contact, very focused attention during the visitation between the mother and the child. And, that was presented to the judge. And of course, the mother prevailed on that issue.
Hmm.
But I always wondered, because I never followed up or looked into it, I wonder whatever happened to that social worker.
She still has a job. Probably got she's probably a supervisor now.
Hmm, you might be right.
Yep.
Anyway, so let's go to our next question.
I'm getting it right now.
Cassandra, if you have any questions, just feel free to jump in as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Uh, are you gonna go, Cassandra?
You want me to
Honey,
go? Or do you want
And
to
you can
go?
ask.
'Cause I don't got a question yet. Well, I kind of,
Oh, I have a question.
huh?
Okay, wait. I have a question.
Okay.
You have a question? Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
Sorry.
I don't know if I mentioned this, but this is live. It's not like we can edit it out.
I know. I'm sorry.
How about those Dodgers, huh?
Yeah, about those daughters, right? So, and actually, I'm. Oh my God, I'm not gonna ask the question. This is what I would like to address. Okay.
Okay,
In
hold on a second. Daniel Garcia says, "Can I ask a question?" Of course,
Oh, go
Danielle.
Daniel, please.
Go ahead and post your question.
Because
Go ahead.
apparently Cassandra and I are La La Land right here.
Oh,
Me and
well,
Cassandra together.
we ever like I have a question, I think. Okay. I was going to say, do you ever hold on. Okay. Or like how would you think about over the foster kids bill of rights in the show sometime?
Say that again. I didn't hear the
How
question.
would
You
you
kind of
feel about going over the bill of rights? Like how would you feel about going over the bill of rights
for foster kids.
maybe?
Oh, I don't mind it at all.
Mhm.
I mean, obviously, we can't have a foster child on the show,
Maybe.
but going over the
Yeah,
Bill
I
of
know,
Rights
but
for the foster.
yes. So to let parents know what is violating their children's rights and how to go about that.
Oh, I don't mind about that at all. I mean, if you have the Bill of Rights or on the
Okay.
next show, you want to talk about the foster parents' the foster child's Bill of Rights, um, we can definitely go over it. We can post it. We can put it in the link for people to download. But there's one thing, one caution I want to give you. Okay,
Okay.
this is very valuable information, but there's a big but here. I don't want you as a parent to focus on that. I want you to focus on getting your child back, okay, or your children back. And then we'll turn to how the foster child's um, rights have been violated.
Okay.
I don't,
I'm
I
just
don't think
saying
I've
because
ever,
like
I don't think I've ever mentioned this to you guys, but we get a lot of calls from foster children, or excuse me, former foster children
Mhm,
that were abused in the CPS system or the CPS foster home,
mhm.
because everybody thinks, oh, we put them in the foster home, everything's going to be just fine. That's not true.
Mm-mm.
That's not true at all. I first learned this 25 years ago, 30 years ago, when I used to represent foster parents in hearings where the state is taking away their license as a foster parent. Now, the interesting thing is these proceedings are like juvenile proceedings, they're confidential. So the people on that case, right, in juvenile court know nothing about the foster parents, license being trying to be taken away, and know nothing about all of the things that the foster parent did or didn't do. Who knows is the social worker knows in a lot of cases and never brings it up to the court. Wonder why that is. I mentioned this before, but I once represented a woman. How did they phrase it? That caused the death of a foster child.
Mm.
You think these places are safe places? And sometimes maybe that's why I feel the way I do, because when I represented foster parents in these cases, and these were foster parents that had been alleged to have done wrong, done wrongdoing. Um, they're not safe places, all of them.
No.
They're
But
not.
I do want to mention something when you're done.
Okay, I'm done.
July 2022 and recently in August, so sorry, September. The first incident, it was a police officer he's an NYPD. He has 3 children. The court gave custody to him and removed parental rights from the mom. The mom was fighting, trying to protect her kids from abuse, but they didn't believe the mom because the dad has a badge. That's what I've been telling you guys all along. When the father has a freaking badge and a title, completely dismiss the mom. Okay, so he was living with his girlfriend. His girlfriend abused the children. The 7-year old, or the 5-year old rather, the girlfriend and him put the child in the garage, 19-degree weather.
19th?
19-degree weather.
Oh, 19-degree weather.
Right, and the child suffered a great deal. He died. The child died, and the 10-year-old survived, luckily. And the nanny told the media, it was Channel 5 News, told Channel 5 that I've been saying he should never had custody to begin with. So basically, it's deeper than we think. The nanny told the social workers, don't give him custody. Don't. Just don't. Don't.
Was this a case in Los Angeles?
New York.
Oh, New York.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you guys need to understand, that's what I've been saying all along, is that the court sees a badge. I remember this mother I was telling you about, her husband or ex is a firefighter. And the first thing the judge told her in court when she went to court, that woman judge, and I pray to God one day she'll meet her creator. And she said to the mom, how dare you? He's a firefighter. How dare you? Like she knew him, or like she lived with them and she knows everything. And she already made the mother guilty on the first day to court and completely made the father look like a hero. And she actually said that he's a hero. How dare you, etc., etc. But all the mother cared about is the abuse, correct? But the court makes it look like because he has a badge and a wife who is a district attorney, that he's great. Same thing with this NYPD case. They dismissed the mother when all along she's been saying he's been abusing. But they wouldn't listen because of his status. So again, the courts, you don't go to court for justice. Honestly, you don't. You just have to have the right attorney that understands how to fight this narcissistic piece of shit system. That's pretty much what it is. Sorry, I had to say it.
That's okay. Appreciate the comments. Miss Cassandra, did you want to add anything? We're coming to the end of the show, the 45-minute mark.
No, I don't got anything. I'll be prepared for tomorrow.
Oh, no problem. No problem. It's all good. We're on 7 days a week, so it's all good. Getting a lot of comments today. Have you guys noticed that?
No. Really?
Yes. Different people too, not just all people. Yeah.
A lot of comments.
Got a couple different people commenting today.
By the way, people, I love the comments because it gives me an idea of where you're at and what we might want to talk about.
Well, Lindsay just wrote something, Vincent. She said, as a matter of fact, I just got home from a visit with my kids. If you can bring that. Well, one of them, the other one didn't show up. That's a good point that Lindsay just made. I wanted to ask you that, and I forgot that question earlier. Why do they always separate the children? The children are always separated in different foster homes. And then the parents get to see each child in a separate day. But the children are not together.
Right, that's not the way it's supposed to be, obviously, but it's
Mhm,
happening,
mhm.
and
It's
the when it happens, unfortunately, it falls on the shoulder of the parents and the parents' attorney to make a change, to try to find a place, that can be placed together. I remember years ago, I did a case, and the kids were, all in different foster homes. There were 5 kids in 4 foster homes, and even the judge said, "Well, why are all of the kids, in different foster homes?" Even he couldn't believe it, and the reason given was they couldn't find, sorry about that, they couldn't find a foster home to take all of the kids. And the judge was like, "Well, I mean, maybe you can find one that can take 2 or 3 of the kids together, right?" But here was the thing, the mother had a family friend who was a foster parent that lived in the same community, and she had been telling the social worker she'd take all the kids together, right? But somehow that got lost in the translation or lost in the story. Why they do that, I don't know. I mean, I speculate money has something to do with it, funding, you know, governmental entities. When I was an accountant, I worked for a large accounting firm, and one of our biggest clients in the LA office was Los Angeles County. Governmental accounting works different from business. The more you use, the more you get to ask for reimbursement and the bigger your budget is. So if you're asking money from the federal government and say, look, I need, to funding for 5 different foster homes instead of one different foster home, guess where you get the most money? For the 5 different foster homes. Nobody stops and think, well, wait a minute. We could have put all of these kids in one foster home and saved the taxpayers a lot of money.
No,
But, you know, I
no,
only speculate. I only think about these things because, over 30 years of doing this, you see a lot of things, you kind of scratch your head and say, I wonder why that happens. And unfortunately, when you get involved in this kind of thing, you get focused on one thing like getting the children back. But all this other crap that's happening in the case, you don't have time to investigate or even think about. So no one ever gets to the real bottom. I mean, somebody should bring a lawsuit, to try to change some things. I have a Facebook friend that I haven't heard from in years. And many, many years ago, I want to say maybe 25 years ago, he and an organization he was involved with brought a lawsuit against the county. And I think it was settled for a staggering amount of money. And it was regarding something they were doing, something CPS was doing with respect to foster children. And I forget the details, but um, he's not doing that anymore. I mean, he kind of retired now, but you need people like that have the time, the energy, and the resources to focus on these problems. Like I can tell you one thing right now that is a problem. When they detain your children by law, you're supposed to see them. Um, you're supposed to have at least one visitation with them before the court hearing. How many times does that not happen? Almost every case. Almost every case. But
I
I just bring
really
that up.
hate. I really, and hate is a very strong word. My mom and dad used to forbid that word. Really, they used to always have me choose dislike instead of hate. But as I get older, I'm in my mid 50s, and I hate the Department of Child Services. I hate, I really hate them. I hate them with every passion I have in me for what they're doing to children, what they're doing to parents, because they actually don't have the best interest at heart for their children. The children who are being abused, they keep them in the home of the abuser. And the children who have a loving family, they'd snatch these kids from them. And it will
Well,
never
well,
change.
right. Well, we're going to try to make it change. We've come to the end of the show, folks. I will be seeing everyone tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. for our Sunday show. Miss Cassandra, will you be joining us? Will you be busy? How about you have your own life to live? I understand that. And Miss G, will you be with us or will you be? Okay, very good. Then I'll see everyone tomorrow. Everyone have a good Friday and
Friday?
have a
Oh,
good Saturday.
oh, okay. Yeah.
I'm still stuck on Friday.
Yeah, I was scared of there for a minute. I'm like, what? Okay.
All right. Goodbye, y'all. Bye bye.
Bye bye.